Hello. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. I know everyone is busy in today's world. So over the next 30 to 40 minutes, I'm going to take you through some of the knowledge I've learned, some of the strategies that might help you. So this is for you if you are a business leader, if you're an owner of a business, if you're a manager, or if you're an individual that really wants to improve their own performance and just understand themselves a bit better, and perhaps the team and the workplace that they're involved in. So thank you for joining me, and I hope you find it of value and use. If you do stick around at the end, I've got some tools that you might also find useful, and they are free. So I will let you know about those as we go further through. There is a Q&A. Please write your questions if you have any along the way, and I will try and answer any of them at the end if there is any. So thanks again for joining us. So a little bit about me. I'm a marketeer really by profession. So I'm a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. But I've, through my career, applied my marketing to lots of different industries and also different sectors and for different purposes, different audiences, if you like. So I've also worked for a very successful and very good at what they do, behaviour change and performance improvement consultancy many years ago now. But that was very useful in understanding behavioural insights, how our brains work, why we're motivated the way we are and why we do the things we do. I've also qualified as a neuroscience coach, so I can help people, including myself, navigate reflections and better performance as an individual and in my work life and in home life. And that's the same I can do for people I work with. I can also do that with teams and with other businesses and the wider group of population in your business, for example. I'm also a neuroscience early years practitioner. So I actually studied around how our brains develop from the early years right up to the ages that we are now. And I've also done work in highly sensitive people. Neurodivergence is clearly something that's becoming a big key topic and much more talked about in the workplace and between ourselves. So it's something I wanted to better understand and apply that to the solutions that we provide. In our company itself, what we are able to help you with is anything from the hire to retire. So we're not a pension provider. We don't do anything around the plumbing, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but the processes of a business. That's not what we're about. We're about the lifeblood of the business, the actual energy of the business, why people do what they're doing and what they're doing and how we can make them do what they're doing better. So everyone wins, the business as well as the employees. So we do that in a number of ways. I won't go into lots of detail about that now, but you can see we do the spectrum from creative, some of the assessments, some of the audits. We put plans together, strategies together. We can do it on a light touch or a really, involved basis. It really depends on what the company and the individuals are struggling with and that they need help with. Now, how is neuroscience in leadership going to help you as an individual? One, I think it's really critical that people do understand themselves and they understand why they do what they do, but more so that they're able to apply that in their thinking within their workplace and with the people they support and the business that they lead or work in. Now, it's no surprise that our brain is hardwired for one thing, really, and that's survival. And in the modern world, there isn't a saber-toothed tiger, and we might have all heard this before, but there are stresses and pressures and anxieties and worries. And we have those every day, some more than others. But we don't want to just be surviving. We want to be thriving. That's what the modern world says. That's what social media says. That's what our life ideals are. We want to have it all. We want to have a great time, a great job, a great life, and lots of things in it that we enjoy and stretch us and drive us. So that's really what our brain is wanting to do. Now, there is lots of thinking these days around more and more knowledge and understanding and research around neuroscience. And there's debate whether the triune brain actually exists. But you'll see in this slide, we talk about the brainstem, the limbic system and the cerebral cortex. Now, I'm not a neuroscientist. I want to make that really clear, but I do have a fascination for understanding how we work the way we do and how we can apply understanding and programs and strategies to improve life for all of us. That's my motivation. So looking at that really briefly, you've got the survival brain, which is effectively the first part of our brain, the brain stem. That's the first thing that's actually created when the brain starts to evolve, and it evolves upward, literally, as we grow and as we develop as children and then into the adults. Now, there's some myth busters I want to just make sure for anybody that's in the background there. If you think that our brains, we can't teach an old dog new tricks, that we know that's not true. Neuroplasticity, it means our brains change all the time if we choose to allow new information in, if we choose to be open-minded, if we're receptive to being curious, open-minded, and explore new things. Neurogenesis might be something else you're not familiar with, but that's our brain's way of saying, I don't need those circuits and pathways that we were working on before. We don't use them. They're not relevant. They're not helpful. But here is something we are really good at. And the more we do it, the better we get. I think we've all heard about 10,000 hours is what's required to be an expert in something. Well, neurons that fire together wire together. The more you do something, the better and easier it is for your brain to do that and think that way. So that goes the same for our inner critics. If we have negative self-talk, it's easier for our brain to go to that place. This is some of what CBT is founded on. So this is why all these things in the workplace about well-being and motivation and saying the right things and positive talk and coaching and all these things are really crucial and why we need them. So effectively understanding neuroscience and how we work as individuals and as humans. The middle brain, the limbic system, is our emotional brain. It's our regulation. That itself is about homeostasis. If we can bring ourselves back to homeostasis where something has been really stressful or really exciting, the brain wants to get back to balance, because when it's back to balance, it can make sensible, survival, accountable, good decisions for our survival and our continuation. The cerebral cortex is the most developed and latest in terms of evolution of the brain. And that ultimately is really all about the higher thinking, the things that, we can anticipate. We have very sophisticated knowledge, logic, speech, all those other things that make us different to other mammals, for example. And they're very complex. You have 84 billion neurons, and most of them are firing together with at least 1,000 other neurons in your brain, which to me blows my mind. It's been likened to the amount of stars in the galaxy or something. But ultimately, it means you have trillions of connections all bouncing around, talking to each other, thinking about things. And if you use them to your advantage, with all the experience and knowledge you've got a very, very powerful operating system that you're walking around with every single day. I think it's fascinating, and it blows me away every time I think about it. But ultimately, this is what I want you to take away from this. If you are near the chat and you can chat, I would love to understand from your own experiences, and you won't want to do this about the workplace that you might be in, because maybe that's a bit sensitive, because comments are captured within this. But if you can think about a workplace that you've been in and how you felt within that workplace, either stressed or motivated and really in the flow and positive, can anybody relate to being in a negative environment that wasn't as motivating as it could be and gave you stress that was unnecessary? If you can relate to that, please put a yes in the chat, just so I can get an understanding going forward as to how many people have had experience of difficult workplaces or different environments. So leadership. I don't know if any of you have studied a huge amount in leadership. There's so much out there and it's all fantastic. But ultimately, a chap called Manfred Ketz de Vries, if you're familiar with him and if you know him, he was on a podcast with Jacob Morgan and The Future of Work recently. Brilliant chap, basically, a great coach, knows an awful lot about a lot of things in terms of management and leadership and successful businesses. And he came up with the 8 archetypes of leadership. Now, given what I've just explained about really the way our brain develops and the different ways that we react and work and think, he devised 8 archetypes that he saw as patterns in all leadership teams. And it basically means, a bit like a SWOT analysis, you may have a strength or a weakness in any of these particular areas, but you will have a preference that your default sort of neuron pathway wiring will go to when you get excited or when you get enthused or when you're passionate about doing something in a workplace. Now, that doesn't mean any of those archetypes are better or worse than the other. It just means that you will have a preference. And I would really encourage you to have a look and think about which one might be the one that you relate to or that you go to as a priority and as a strength. And then perhaps look at how you might develop some of those other areas. And this really is what 360 surveys are about, and coaching, and just getting feedback generally on how you are and how you interact, whether it be in one-to-ones or otherwise. I'm not going to go through all these because these are quite in depth, but I really encourage and you to have a look at them in your own time and do some self-reflection on where you think you sit and where you think you have opportunities to improve. The other aspect is to consider in your management team or your leadership teams, have you got people that are missing that actually have some of these strengths, or you could do with some of these strengths? Because obviously a balance is always a good thing. Remember the brain wants to get back to a homeostasis point of view. It doesn't want to be overstressed. It doesn't want to be doing things it's not particularly good at, and it wants to make sure that you've got balance in some way or another. So what we do know is with employee engagement, in terms of people experience and the task emphasis, if you look at that grid, I'm not even going to talk about the other three. Clearly, you understand what's written there, but the transformational leader is what is needed in today's workplaces, and it's what individuals and employees are asking for. They want somebody that might have low focus on task. It's not about task. The job will get done. It has to get done, but it's about the people experience and focusing on the people and how you help them deliver and achieve what they need to achieve in the business that they've joined. So again, I'd encourage anybody to sit back and take some time to think about their own leadership, their own managers, their own management style themselves, if you're in that position, and just think about how much focus you put on the people as opposed to the process. One of my biggest gripes at the moment, and I'm seeing it time and time again, digital and automations are fantastic, but not when the process is trumping over the purpose. The purpose of business is generally high customer service, repeat transactions, advocacy, a good reputation. But when your process erodes or destroys some of that because your process is so efficient, something is going wrong, and that's happening a lot. And so I would ask you to look at who your team are, what's happening. Are you doing the job, or are you, as a business and a collective of people, doing great work that you really enjoy and that you do brilliantly? So time and energy, this is a really big one for me. You can't effectively make more time. Weirdly, we use the expression, I need to make more time. What we actually mean is we need to use the time we've got in a better way and do more with it. And it's the same with energy. Now, arguably, if you're not looking after yourself and you're not taking self-care and you're not keeping fit and as healthy and getting the sleep and all these essential domains that you need to take care of in the right balance, in the right consistency, then you won't have the energy that you potentially could have. But let's just assume you are doing that. You've got 100% of your energy and your battery is full. Are you using that energy in the best way possible for you, for your life, for high performance, and for your team and your company and the people you work with? Or could you be doing some of those things and applying that energy in a better way? Incidentally, your brain actually takes 20% of your energy every single day just to do what it does. It's not a surprise with my brain that I'm a bit of an overthinker with all those neurons and all that energy being used. And maybe you're the same, but could you be applying some of that energy into things that actually work better for you and serve you better than some of the things you're choosing to do with your time? And then magnify that out to your team and your business. What things could they stop doing and do more of that actually help achieve everybody's goals? So I talked about our different emotional brains and how we feel and how we think and conceptualizing and everything else. Now, neurons and hormones, I talked about 6 years ago. I remember putting a post up on LinkedIn thinking I was a little bit crazy even mentioning it on LinkedIn because menopause and everything else hadn't hit LinkedIn at that point. And look at the world and how it's changed now. But I just think it's really important that when you're looking at programs, you're looking at your work culture, you're looking at your employee experience, dopamine is something really that gives great reward. It's our reward center, but it also, if it's overused, can cause a lot of stress because actually it's become addictive personalities rely on dopamine. So if you're always wanting something, and you want more and more and more, you have to manage all of these things in balance and at the right time for the right thing and in an ecosystem that actually works and is responsible and healthy. But dopamine, for example, is that award, that achievement. It's the little mini fix that makes us feel good about ourselves. It's the brain's way to tell you you've done a good job. Oxytocin. I got first introduced to oxytocin when I had my son. It's the love drug and it's the bonding hormone. It's the thing that makes you feel connected. A laugh, a hug, being with people, being around people. That is something that we also get from work. Being connected and belonging with the people we work with and actually really enjoying who we work with. that's actually oxytocin at play there. That's not just socializing. There's a connection to our nervous system there that matters. Serotonin, another feel-good hormone, but this one's more about the hard work in the office that you've done, being recognized for it. So not your self-achievement, but also other people saying, I saw that, that's brilliant, well done, thank you. And that's discretionary effort. A lot of people I have spoken to over the years will say, well, they get paid to do their job. That's what their contract's for, and they pay them well to do it. And I agree with that. But actually, the analogy I use is, do you want somebody that just does their job because that's what they're paid to do? Or do you want somebody that cares about the business success and everybody in it as well, like you do as an owner or a business leader? Do you want that person that sees rubbish in the corridor to pick it up and put it in the bin because they like to work in a tidy environment as well? Because it's not on their job description, but it's something that you'd value them doing. So actually call it out, recognize people, give them a serotonin boost. Endorphins, this really is about exercise and about doing stuff and emotion, moving. And I really think, I remember years ago, B&Q or somebody did some of the Tai Chi or things like that from Japan, and in the morning before their shifts. And I really think in the long term, at some point, we will be introducing exercise as something that you almost need to do as part of your work contract. And I think there should be, whether it be meditation, mindfulness, just movement of some kind. I think it's actually a social need that we all need to have and we all benefit from. I put a link on the bottom of there. So if you do want to look a bit more into any of these things, you can. But understanding these emotions, these are the positive ones, okay? These are the ones that actually give us motivation and drive and make us feel good and keep us wanting to do things. And they're about really meaning, not just about purpose. We have meaning when these things are being fulfilled. Now, the opposite side of that is cortisol and adrenaline. So that's the stress. That's the survival part of the brain. That's the bit that says, is this a threat? Is it a threat to my life? Now, life today could be your job, income, basic needs being met, a roof over your head, food in your belly. Or it could be something a bit more advanced, depending on where you are on the scale of all that. But the times change all the time, and we've had a lot to deal with over the last few years. The stress curve you can see there, if you just focus in the middle, there's an optimum, and we need cortisol, a little bit of it at least, enough to make us motivated. So we don't sit on the sofa all day long and we don't want to not do anything. That is healthy, but too much and for too long leads to burnout. And burnout is dangerous. It's dangerous in your workplace. It's dangerous clearly for the individual. And it's bad for your employer reputation and your company reputation, let alone clients and everything else. So seriously, sit back and think for a moment. Do you have burnout? Do you have policies and processes and ways of working that aren't helping? Or have you got it all sorted and it's brilliant and you're really pleased and you're really focused on it? And I hope you are the latter. But if you're not, maybe there is some work to be done. Resilient companies. So why is managing stress and managing cortisol and adrenaline and the extended chronic pressure that people are on, why is it not good? It might seem good for the revenue and the sales targets or the productivity, but it's actually not. It's a false economy. Building resilience is where you want to be. Now, building resilience is about allowing and helping individuals to come back to that homeostasis when there's been a worry, a crisis, or an issue. It could be a bad debt, losing a big client. It could be losing a key member of your team that's really essential. It could be simply just having a really bad day for too many days in a row and not hitting your sales target and feeling terrible about it. That itself could be a shock to the business, a shock to the team, a shock to the department. It's all on a scale. But what you can see here is that the companies that have more resilient people and therefore are a more resilient business bounce back better, quicker. So they actually achieve more in a lot less time than the companies that don't have resilience built in and resilient staff. And I think if you can look at the staff that you do have and the business practice that you have and try to understand what would you do and how would your staff cope, or how have they coped with something that was really tough? What's your team like? Do they need more support in building resilience? Do you need more support in building resilience? Do we trigger? Now, I toyed with the trigger word because trigger is, a difficult word really, but are you causing individuals to go home and feel very annoyed about business and about work and about their boss? It's often bosses that individuals leave a company for. It's not normally the company. Or are you making them metaphorically want to run away, i.e. leave, just leave, leaving the business? That would be the modern version of flight. or ignoring a task, or just not dealing with a piece of work because they're not equipped to do it, they don't want to do it, or they're going to fail at it, so they don't even want to start. And that could also be the freeze element. I don't know what to do, so I'll do nothing. And nothing isn't really an option because that doesn't progress anything in any way. So are any of your managers or any of the work or the processes that you do or your growth strategies and what you're asking staff to do, are they causing any additional challenges and issues that are putting your staff under unnecessary stress and repeated stress that's actually working against what you're trying to achieve? When you consider how people feel, think and act, is your practices and what you're trying to achieve achieving the right things? I'm going to tell you some really little brief stories here, and we do have an ebook that accompanies this webinar, which goes into more detail on this. But I just want to bring to life a little bit how these things can actually work in practice in a workplace. So, for example, we've got Ralph. Now, Ralph, he's actually a high flyer. He's been doing brilliantly in his job. He really has. He's been hitting all his quotas, and his manager has been giving him incentives, rewards, gifts, prizes, bonuses, everything you can think of. The carrot. I call it the metaphorical carrot. Brilliant, but actually he is running out of steam. He's running out of energy. He is so worn down by this constant need to achieve. Now, sales is sales. You have to do that. You have to achieve your goals. But actually, just because you are achieving, it doesn't mean you can keep achieving, or the targets can keep going up, or you can keep changing the parameters of what you're asking your staff to do and just want more and more and more. And they'll be putting on a brave face. It's very rare that you see salespeople crumble in front of you and tell you they can't cope with it. And to be honest, by the time they're at that point, they are really not coping and you have a major problem. And that's, you know, an HR person's nightmare from a case management point of view. And you don't want that. You don't want your high flyer burning out. So, you know, how does someone like Ralph say to his manager, actually, I'm loving all the gifts, but they're kind of worn off now. I can only earn so many bonus. I still want to sleep at night and I'm worried and stressed all the time. You don't want individuals like that. Incidentally, one of the new initiatives that is a very moving story, but Baton of Hope actually have put forward a workplace charter to Parliament just recently about anti-suicide and how we could try and aim for a zero suicide society. Now, that is a fact of life, or a fact of death, quite frankly, to be grim. You don't want that, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. There should never be a need or a reason to feel that life isn't worth living. End of story. And you as owners and business and leaders should be doing something for yourself to make sure that never happens and make sure that that doesn't happen in your businesses. The carrot, when used brilliantly and appropriately and proportionately, is a really great incentive. It gives you your dopamine rush, gives you your serotonin. It's great to be acknowledged for great work, but not if the rest of the culture and the situation and environment is toxic, because it can't be all about carrots. That's not what people want. Neuroscience and economical behaviour and economic science proves that. People do not just want all the time. All things being equal, recognition and appreciation is the difference. Rose is just out of university. It's her first job. Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ponytail swinging in the air, bounces into the second week of her job to do a presentation, and her boss is there, and he spots a spelling error on that second slide, and he just shoots her down in front of everybody straight away. She feels paralyzed, crippled, ashamed, embarrassed. Her confidence goes immediately. She's expected to carry on, but she can't. How can she carry on when he's just made her feel terrible? That's not what anybody wants to do. Now, I don't think for a moment her manager wanted to make her feel that way. He might have wanted just to assert his authority. He might have wanted to just demonstrate to her that, well, actually, that's not good enough. You're going to have to up your game. You know, we check our slides. We don't do presentations with faults on them. But actually, it didn't achieve what he wanted. It now made her fearful to carry on, and it will make her have anxiety that's unnecessary. Now, I'm all for accountability and consequence. There's absolutely no reason why he shouldn't have then, at the end of it, given her feedback, talked to her in a one-to-one, and gave her the information and the standards he expects, but in a supportive, kind, directive, helpful way that was going to achieve that. There's nothing wrong with accountability, but beating people with big sticks and making them feel terrible doesn't help. And it's more likely to want people to walk out the door and go somewhere to work somewhere else. People leave managers, remember, they don't leave good businesses normally, and they don't like normally leaving good people. Richard, perfect, brilliant. He arrives in his job. He's doing a sales meeting. He's been asked, would you like to run it? Would you like to do it? And he knows, totally different to Rose. He knows his team and the managers. He's already been clearly managed his expectations. Richard, you're going to give a presentation, whatever whether it's good, bad, indifferent. We'll give you feedback at the end of it. We'll help you focus on the bits that need improvement. We'll acknowledge the bits that were brilliant, and we'll all move on from there. Go for it. We're all behind you. That's a totally different way of working than somebody taking their stress out on somebody else, somebody making somebody feel bad, or somebody putting somebody under too much pressure. And that's the engage approach. Carrot and sticker in the bin. Let's all do this together. This is a collaboration. We want a high-performing, collaborative company culture. You pull your weight, I'll pull mine. Let's do this together. Let's share ideas. Let's push forward. If you remember Maya Angelou, and if you have seen her work, she is probably one of the most amazing women that lived. She died sadly recently. She had a huge amount of qualifications, a huge amount of knowledge, a published author on so many books, so many areas. But her most famous quote, reportedly, is that people will never forget how you've made them feel. And I think if you can apply that in your transformational leadership and think about how you're making somebody feel, and if that's your intent, if that's your motivation, is to make them feel good about the things that they're going to be better at, and they already are good, and you're going to make them feel good about the things that they can tackle and achieve that they're not so good at. That's motivation, that's support, and that's leadership. So strategies for high performance in your organization. Now, these are just a very light touch example and some explanations of the things that you can do. And some of you may be already doing some of these brilliantly. But effectively, there are certain components that you really need to be looking at from the employee experience. So, policies and practices and approaches to things that you have in terms of flexible working and all of that, that's a whole nother conversation, of which I do know quite a bit about because of what I experience with other companies and employers and the HR people I work with. But in terms of a program for employee engagement, there are certain areas that you want to focus on. Clarity. Does not only the individual and the business know what their job is? Do they know what your purpose is as a business? What are you trying to achieve? Does their onboarding explain that? Does the job description explain that? Does your marketing and content material to the employees explain what you do and how you do it, and why you're the best at it, and why people should work with you, and why they should feel proud of the business they're working in? Do you have that clarity around just even that area? And we could apply that to so many parts of the business. Connection. Do you allow socializing? Do you encourage fun and laughter in the business? Or does, when the boss walk along, virtually or otherwise, do people get all serious because they can't have a laugh and a joke, because that means they're not working? Laughter is one of the factors on humor, is one of the main factors in positivity and resilience building. So if there's not enough laughter in your workplace, you need to question why, because there should be. It's a really valid trait and characteristic, and it creates a connection. Have you got social events that you regularly do and you invite people to? Are they inclusive? Are they broad enough for all the different types of people? People with caring responsibilities, people that can't travel, people that like different kinds of activities. Have you got a big mix? Do you do things that try and build connection, particularly with hybrid and remote working? Safety, psychological safety is really important. Can your employees trust you? Do you keep them up to date? Do you give them communication that they need in a timely manner? Are they the last to know? Does their customers tell them more of what you should already be telling them? Can they trust you to be taking care of them and running the business in a responsible, focused way that's about success for all of you? So safety comes in many ways, and there are barometers and actual safety, psychological safety, trust scores that you can look at. But feedback surveys is obviously another area to question that sort of information and gain that insight. Growth, learning and development. Not everybody wants to be promoted. Most people think, well, once there's a ceiling, there's only so many senior roles. We only earn so much money as a business. Well, we can't promote everybody, and then that's why people leave. Well, actually, some people don't always want people responsibility. They might want more money, but often they want more development. They want to learn more. They might want to job share. They might want to change track in the company that you already work at. So those mobility of moving people around and helping them develop, learn more, grow as an individual in competence and breadth of their knowledge. What do you do around that space for them? Do you provide meaning in their work? So this isn't about purpose. You have a purpose as a business, and they have a purpose in their life as an individual, and they find that purpose. But does what they do in your business have meaning? And of course, you'll say it does, otherwise the job wouldn't exist. But what does it deliver? And how do they know what they're doing has meaning? Are they always in the back end, or behind the scenes? They never get to see the work that they've created or they've helped to contribute to, and they don't understand the part they play in it. Think about how you could enrich that, how you could share that more with them, and how they could share more of what they know to equip and develop others. That's growth, and that's connection too. All these things are connected to everything else, and they're all connected to each other. Recognition. Do you have a welcome for new employees? What does that look like? Do you send them things? Do you help them get on board quickly and up to speed and feel part of the team as quickly as possible? Or is there just a get on with it and we will see you on the other side approach? Do you have a formal values and behaviours and recognition programme? Do they get rewarded for that? How do you celebrate it? Recognition comes in all walks. It's not just about sales. It's not just about revenue. It's about values, actions, behaviours. Are they doing the right things? Have they got the right culture? Have they got the right attitude? Do they make a difference in the business? And moments that matter are really important. Anniversaries, birthdays, birth of a first child, probation completions, qualifying in a qualification or an area of education that was really important for the business and that will add value to you. All those things are things that you could recognise. Do you do that, and how do you do it, and could you do it better? So what happened to Ralph, Rose and Richard? All fine. Thankfully, Ralph is still with us and he's sailing. He's doing great. Rose grew up, no problem there at all. These are all people, by the way, that I've worked with of a kind or seen these scenarios. Richard, he carried on with his boss, and that his boss still mentors him, and he's just gone skyrocketing into lots and lots of different careers and different senior roles, and had a great time. So for me now, this is an invitation for you. I hope what I've shared has been useful, and I know I've probably rushed through it a bit. I do that, and apologies. But I'd like to invite you now to consider where you are in your workplace, and you are as an individual, and what your workplace is needing the most, what you're either struggling with or what could just be developed to enhance people staying with you longer, people being happier to be in your business and come to your business and do more while they're there. So the invitation is threefold, actually. We operate a NeuroChange challenge, which covers all of the things that we've talked about. It equips you as individuals to understand neuroscience a bit better, and not just understand it, but apply the things that will make you as an individual more resilient and higher performing. So your nutrition, your rhythms, your connections, the things that matter to you in your life that actually make the difference between how you do cope and how you don't cope with tough times and good times, because hopefully you've got a good balance of all of those things. We help you understand how that works for you, for yourself, and then how that would work for you and your team or your business. We help you create the culture and bring it to life and define what that is, bring those clarity, that allowance for connections, recognition, all those things. We'll enhance the experience all round for everything you're doing, measure the magic, and we'll shout about the success. So we can really help you with that. If that's of interest, please get in touch with me. My email is sharonkennedy@engageandprosper.com. I'd love to talk to you about it. Wherever you are in that interest level, there's always a good time to start, and sometimes these things take longer than they need, but I'm here. If you're not quite ready, there's a scorecard quiz, which if you email me, I'll send you the link. And that really is just a really short quiz. It will take 2 or 3 minutes, if that. If you think about it, it might take you a bit longer. But it's just really a little quick measure for where are you on resilience and your culture as a business. What are you doing? And it might just give you a little bit of an overview on some of the gaps that you might have and some of the areas that you might need to focus on to start getting some gains and wins and improving the employee engagement and experience in your business. And the last thing really is, if you're still not sure, but you're still just wanting to explore this, and I do genuinely thank you for coming to learn more about these strategies and neuroscience and people, to hopefully be able to apply it back to your business and your life and your work life. And I really do genuinely appreciate you doing that, because it's so important. Work is a big part of our lives. We're in it for too long to be doing something we don't enjoy in a company we don't like and for people we don't trust. So if that's the case, have a look at some of the calculators we've got on our website. they'll give you an indication on the sort of thing that absenteeism or attrition is costing. If it's excessive, it might not be in your business. You might just come here and gone, yep, we're doing all that, and actually we're doing okay. And really, congratulations if you are. But if you're not, the calculators will maybe help you build a business case for why some money needs to be spent and diverted from the loss and the cost of what you're putting in trying to keep people, or maybe having a leaky bucket. So thank you very much for listening to me and spending the time with me so far. And if you've got any questions, I would be very grateful to listen or read them and answer them. So I'm going to have to look at another computer now to see if there are any. And I'm not sure there is. So I think that's everything. So again, if you do want any advice, you can book a consultation with me. You can email me for any of those links and information. And I wish you the rest of the day a good day and a good week. And thank you very much for joining me.